Hey guys, this is Holland with the Wolverine.com, and today we're going to be talking about my time on the road seeing 4 Michigan commits. Before we dive into that, if you're not a subscriber to the Wolverine.com, you can subscribe today for just $1 for 1 month. So not only do you get premium insider recruiting information, football season for the Wolverines is right around the corner, so now is the perfect time to subscribe. Get your latest on all things Michigan recruiting, the team, basketball recruiting, NIL transfer portal, and so much more. Plus, you get to be part of a great message board community with more than 8,000 unique individual users over on the fort. Come join the discussion, get the latest on the team, recruiting, and everything else over at thewolverine.com. Also, like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel for free. All right, guys, like I said, we're going to be talking about my time on the road this week, seeing 4 Michigan commits in action, as well as a 5-star target in David Sanders, who we'll touch on at the end of the video. But let's dive into the commits now. I posted highlights for all 4 of the commits, so you can go to our YouTube channel. If you missed that, you can watch game clips of Jaden Davis, Channing Goodwin, Jake Guarnera, and Jaden Smith. But the first recruit I saw was actually Jake Guarnera. I took a really early flight to Jacksonville on Friday for his season opener against Jacksonville Mandarin, and it was a great game to see Guarnera for a couple of reasons. One, the opponent, Jacksonville Mandarin, is one of the best teams in North Florida, and so they offered a really good defensive line to test Guarnera. And number 2, this was actually his first game playing center. Now, he is committed to Michigan as a pure center. Sharon Moore made it a priority to go out and land a guy that could play center this cycle. They wanted a true center after not really taking one last year. So looking at Guarnera and his junior film, he plays a lot of offensive tackle. So he never played center full-time before, but Sharon Moore identified him as a potential center based on, last year's film, having him come up for the barbecue at the Big House a year ago, and things of that nature. And Guarnera at 6'4", 283 pounds is a little bit of a taller center. I want to say he's even closer to 6'5". He's been filling out really well with his muscle mass. And looking at him play center, it was clear this was his first game, so he was still getting adjusted to the position, but a lot of traits he had as a tackle last year, he carried over to the center position. So he was at his best in pass pro, which is, again, no surprise. He has a really good base. He has pretty good footwork in pass pro. I really like some of the handwork he did. There was one play in particular where the nose tackle bull rushed him and extended his arms, and Guarnera slapped him down and prevented him from even moving at all. Things like that, are what he carried over from the tackle position to the center position. So he's going to be a plus in pass pro as a center. Now, run blocking, he is physical. He is a guy that wants to bury people, and he does on his junior film. But in this game in particular, like I said, Mandarin had a really good defensive line, 1. But 2, since he's still getting used to snapping, I think that took away from him being able to just be completely physical and pulverize people. He still showed plenty of aggression, but I think once he gets the intricacies of playing the center position down, he's going to be a really, really good take for Michigan. I know a lot of people don't talk about Jake Guarnera since he's a 3-star prospect. He's down in Ponte Vedra, Florida. And he's a center, which isn't really a sexy position. But I think he's going to be a really good player for the Wolverines down the line. On top of that, I think he checks the intangible boxes of being a center. He is a team captain. He's a really intelligent and smart kid. He has a really high football IQ. His father, Jim, played defensive line for Rutgers and had a brief stint in the NFL with the San Francisco 49ers. So he's grown up around the game. But yeah, there's a lot to like about Jake Guarnera. I'm really interested to see how he progresses as a true center for the rest of his senior season. Again, this was the opener, so his first time playing center, but I thought he did a really good job out there against a really strong Mandarin team in a competitive loss. The next Michigan commit I saw was Jaden Smith on 300 linebacker out of West Charlotte. So Saturday morning, I took a flight from Jacksonville to Charlotte and immediately made my way over to see Jaden Smith against Charlotte Palisades. And Smith was definitely fun to watch. He's a really interesting prospect. So I went out to the Under Armour camp in Charlotte in the offseason shortly after Michigan offered him. And just watching him move around there, I said, hey, this kid that's not ranked, and he was unranked at the time. Now he's a top 250 player nationally. On3 actually has him rated as the number 248 overall prospect in the country. But when I went out to see him at the Under Armour camp, I was like, man, I think Chris Partridge might have found a guy. And Partridge was down there a couple of weeks before I was and extended an offer to Smith. And like I said, he was unranked. He was a sleeper. Nobody really knew anything about him. But at that camp, you could see the athleticism. You could see the speed. You could see the length. He's only listed at 6'2", but he has really, really long arms. And he has great speed sideline to sideline. He can cover. He's also listed at 195 pounds, so he's on the skinnier side. But I think he's added some good weight over the last few months, or at least since the last time I saw him at that Under Armour camp. I think he's playing at around 205 right now, so he's starting to fill out. I don't think he'll have any issue playing in the 220s, especially in Michigan's strength and conditioning program with Ben Herbert. So I know a lot of people see the weight, and they're kind of a little bit afraid of it. But I think Smith, more so than even a guy like Mason Curtis, who's listed around the same weight, I think Smith will have less of an issue putting weight on his frame than Curtis will. So I'm not concerned about the weight at all. Smith is, like I said, just a really fun player. He checks a lot of the boxes for Jesse Minter's scheme at that linebacker spot. Like I said, he can cover, he can run sideline to sideline, he's physical, he's a heat-seeking missile. There's a lot to like about Jaden Smith, but he's still really, really raw. A lot of times I'm like, man, this guy has no idea what he's doing. He's just out there running around and hitting people. So I think the big thing with Jaden Smith is going to be development, not just with strength and conditioning, but just learning the game a little bit more, getting more technically refined, learning how to use his abilities to his advantage. He has a lot of gifts. I mean, the athleticism, the length, the speed, the size combo. I mean, it's all there. He just has to put it together. So I think he's going to a perfect spot at Michigan where they can maximize those talents. And the other cool thing about Jaden Smith is he's one of the best special teams players in the state of North Carolina. I think he was one of the leaders for blocked punts in the state last year. And in this season opener, he also had a blocked punt that resulted in a touchdown. He had a couple of tackles on kickoff coverage. And actually, I missed the video. That was the only clip that wasn't included in the Jaden Smith highlights. But I wasn't expecting him to go out there on the opening kickoff and just absolutely demolish some poor kid. But that's what he did. He had two tackles on kickoff coverage, a block punt. So you know he's going to be a Jay Harbaugh favorite. You know, Michigan values guys that are willing to play special teams, and Jaden Smith is definitely that type of guy. So a lot to like about Jaden Smith's ceiling. Now, he does have a low floor. He's a kind of hit or miss prospect, but if you hit, you definitely have a guy that can, you know, even exceed the ranking he's at now. All right, let's talk about the Providence Day duo. So after Smith's game, I made the short drive over to the Carolina Panthers Stadium, Bank of America Stadium, to see Providence Day open their season against Rock Hill Northwestern out of South Carolina, and had a chance to see two commits in Jaden Davis and Channing Goodwin. Before we talk about Jaden Davis, because I know that's going to be an interesting topic, let's talk about Channing Goodwin really quick. You know, Goodwin's a legacy recruit. He's a 3-star prospect. He's ranked in the 400s on the On3 industry ranking. So another guy that just doesn't generate a lot of buzz among the fan base. But look, he's a legacy kid. But he's not just a take because he's a legacy. He's one of the most consistent pass catchers in the entire country. Every time I see Channing Goodwin, I mean, he makes every catch. He's a guy that just is a terrific natural pass catcher. He has really soft hands. He's extremely technical as a route runner. He's another kid that grew up around the game with his father being Jonathan Goodwin, former Michigan offensive lineman who won a Super Bowl in the NFL and actually played under Jim Harbaugh with the San Francisco 49ers. So, yeah, I mean, Jaden Goodwin just checks a lot of boxes. Now, he's not this super athletic guy. He's not a big burner, but he has enough of that to make big plays after the catch. He has a little bit of Ronnie Bell in him is kind of how I would, if I had to make a Michigan player comparison, I would liken him to a Ronnie Bell. He had a lot of, simple first down chain movers, but the play that really caught my attention was his 80-yard touchdown. I thought that one was, it showed that Goodwin's capable of being more than just a possession receiver or a guy you go to on third down, more than just a security blanket, right? He can be a playmaker if you need him to. But what makes Goodwin great is that ability as a security blanket. If you need to convert on a 3rd and 5, I want to go to Jaden Goodwin. He's such a trusted option. You can tell he's built great chemistry with Michigan quarterback commit Jaden Davis. I think Jaden Goodwin's going to have a really solid career at Michigan. He might not be a big-time game breaker, but he'll make a couple of big plays here and there, and he'll be a dependable weapon in Michigan's offense moving forward. All right, let's talk about Jaden Davis, top 100 quarterback, has been committed to Michigan since the spring. Now, Davis had an interesting offseason. He obviously fell on every single recruiting service, so not just On3. I know there was controversy about On3 dropping his ranking, but every single service moved him down. He's now a 4-star prospect across the board. Now, I've seen a lot of debate, okay, why did Jaden Davis drop? Was it just because of his camp performances? Who cares about what he does in shorts and shirts? Remember, I've had the same Jaden Davis evaluation since November, since before anything happened with the controversial comments on a radio show to, the elite performance and all Elite 11 performance and 7-on-7s and all of that. I've had the same opinion that was based mostly off of what I saw from him as a junior. And I think Davis shouldn't have been rated that high to begin with. Now, that's not saying that he's not a good prospect or that I hate Jaden Davis or he can't have any success at Michigan. That's not the case at all. Just because you're not a 5-star doesn't mean you're not a very good player. Only the elite of the elite get to be 5-star recruits. I think we need to keep that in perspective. So when I look at Jaden Davis, I have him, kind of in the top. I had him in the top 100 to 150 range. Right now, I probably have him in between, if I were to condense it down, probably between 150 and 165 or 170 is probably where I would put him right now. I don't think that ranking, my own personal ranking, is going to change very much because I think Jaden Davis is what he is. And like I said, he's not a 5-star guy, but he's very, very good. So I guess my ranking did change a little bit because I had him 100 to 150, but I went back and I saw more junior film, a little bit of the stuff this offseason, and then obviously saw him over the weekend. So probably he is probably going to end up in that 150, 170 range for me. I don't think there's much else he can do wrong or great that'll really impress me because I do think he is what he is. And again, that's a very, very good player with a really high floor. So looking at this Providence Day win, Jaden Davis finished with this monstrous stat line, 450 yards, 5 touchdowns. If you break down the clips, though, if you watch the Every Throw video that's on our YouTube, you'll see a lot of those yards are, like I said, Goodwin had an 80-yard touchdown, and a lot of them are just screens and quick game and things of that nature. Davis did hit a couple of big-time elite-level throws. There was one 37-yard connection with Ship on a 4th down. That was a really impressive downfield throw. His 4th touchdown pass, where he threw it to Ship on the opposite pylon, was the best throw of the night from him. That was a Michigan-level type throw, a Power 5, elite-level type throw. But I think those are kind of far and few between. I think the other throws are mostly just short to intermediate, and that's his bread and butter, and that's okay. I think a lot of people are taking me saying, well, half his passes were screens, or quick game or whatever the case is. I'm only saying that because I think people are making too much of the stats. They see the stat line and they're like, 450 yards, he should be a 5-star. Why'd they take it away? Because of his shorts and shirts. But if you really dissect it, those stats are a little bit inflated. But it's not about that, right? I like the screens. I like the quick game because that's where he's at his best. He can dink and dunk and occasionally hit the deep ball. And that's all you need from Jaden Davis. You just need him to be accurate, short to intermediate, and occasionally hit the deep ball. Because when he arrives at Michigan, he'll have a stronger run game and he'll have a better offensive line. So I think Jaden Davis's playing style, while not J.J. McCarthy-esque, I think he's efficient and accurate enough, a good mental processor with a high football IQ, to have a lot of success at Michigan, because he doesn't need to be a spectacular game-breaking 5-star. He just needs to be Jaden Davis. He can dink and dunk all day long. That's great. I think people are making too much of the stat box, but that's another argument. I think the separate thing is he's having a really efficient high school career in which he is a distributor and one of the best distributors in the country. He utilizes his weapons well. He knows how to operate within the offense. He knows how to command the offense and lead them on scoring drives. After early struggles in the first quarter, he bounced back with a really good second and third quarter. I thought, he showed a lot of moxie and toughness getting through that tough first quarter where he was like 3 for 7 for 37 yards and had missed pretty bad on those incompletions. But I feel like Davis, again, can just have a lot of success at Michigan. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if I have him ranked in between 150 and 170 or if somebody else has him ranked as a 5-star. The only thing that should matter to you as a Michigan fan is if he can have success within Michigan's offense and win football games. And Jaden Davis is very capable of doing that. So again, I don't have him as a 5-star. I don't think he's an elite can't miss talent. That's not a bad thing if you're ranked in between 150 and 170. That's really, really good. That's higher than Michigan has landed at the quarterback position since J.J. McCarthy, right? They needed a guy that was a top 300 signal caller, and Jaden Davis is certainly a top 300 signal caller. So, overall, Jaden Davis isn't JJ, and that's fine. But he's going to win football games at Michigan if he earns that starting job. He's going to be really efficient. He's going to be a guy that, might be a little bit boring, but he'll win you football games, or he'll lead the team to wins, especially, like I said, with him having a strong running game and him having a better offensive line. He found the perfect situation at Michigan because Michigan's offense fits him. He doesn't need to be, this game breaker. He just needs to be Jaden Davis. So, some of the things Jaden can work on are, if you watch the game clips yourself, you can be an amateur evaluator like I am, I suppose. You can see he sidearms the ball a little bit. He has a bit of a hitch in his throw, a low release point. I think those are things that can be cleaned up pretty easily with Jim Harbaugh and Kirk Campbell, so I'm not as concerned. Maybe the sidearm a little bit because of his height. He's only about 6 foot and a half. But again, I think he can clean some of those things up. The bigger concern I have with him is lack of athleticism, lack of mobility. And I feel like that's pretty self-explanatory, but a lot of people have asked, well, what does that mean? It means what it says. Like, he's not really mobile. He's not a guy that's a threat with his legs at all. Like, you don't have to game plan for Jaden Davis running. He had negative rushing yards in this game. You never have to really worry about him running and gaining extra yards. Now, when you're that short, when you're 6 foot and a half, you want a shorter quarterback to be able to run. So I think that's the biggest knock on him. And even though, I don't really expect him to be a Kyler Murray or a Bryce Young, but I think what concerns me the most is that he shows limited mobility or escapability within the pocket. He's not a guy that creates a lot. He needs a clean pocket to be able to dink and dunk and work effectively to be at his best. If he's pressured, he's probably not really going to escape that pressure. He's not a really good improviser at all. He really has to depend on things clicking the right way within the system in order to operate at his best. That's okay. Like I said, I think Michigan's offense can fit that. You saw Cade McNamara, who was an absolute statue, and Jaden Davis is more athletic than Cade and can run a little bit better than Cade. But you saw Cade McNamara have a lot of success at Michigan just being a distributor and a statue. So I think Jaden Davis, who is less statue-like, can have similar success at Michigan as well, as long as all the parts operate accordingly within the offense. So overall, I know that was a long breakdown. Overall, there's a lot to like about Jaden Davis. There's some concerns for sure, especially at his height. But at the end of the day, can Jaden Davis lead an effective offense and win football games in Ann Arbor? The answer is yes. All right, so that was a breakdown of the 4 commits. We've gone a little long here. I know my producer, Megan, is probably upset that we're over the 20-minute mark at this point. So very quickly, we're going to touch on David Sanders, 5-star offensive tackle in the 2025 class, a teammate of Jaden Davis and Channing Goodwin. Made his way to the barbecue at the Big House this past month. I mean, dude's an absolute monster. He's the best offensive tackle in the country. I think he has an argument as the best overall recruit in the country. I think he's right up there with Bryce Underwood. There was some positive buzz coming out of the Michigan visit. I know there were a lot of, go happy reports, I guess. I'm being a little bit more realistic here. I think Michigan has some work to do. I think the Wolverines are definitely in that mix. They're likely to get him back for a game this fall. He is looking at visiting for the game against Ohio State, so that's certainly a plus. But I still think it's going to be tough to pull David Sanders out of North Carolina. I think that right now the Southern schools are leading the way there. Georgia, I think if I had to pick a leader, they would be the leader. So I would say Georgia's probably at the top, followed by schools like Alabama and Clemson. South Carolina is also in the mix there. So I think right now his preference is to play in the South. But look, he does have the program connections with Davis and Goodwin. His offensive line coach at Providence Day is Goodwin's dad, Jonathan, who, like I mentioned earlier, played at Michigan and in the NFL. So that's another connection. And coming back for a second visit, I think helps. And obviously Michigan's offensive line success with Sharon Moore, winning back-to-back Joe Moore Awards, that has attention. And lastly, Michigan was actually the first school to offer Sanders. So I know first offers are always meaningful. There are definitely some positives here. But with the Southern schools leading early on, with NIL being prevalent for 5 stars, especially premium positions like left tackle, I still think Michigan is going to have its work cut out for it in this recruitment. So we'll see how things progress once Sanders returns for another visit this fall. All right, guys, like I said earlier, subscribe to the Wolverine.com today for just $1 for 1 month. That gets you premium insider recruiting and team information. Also, like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel for free.